Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. Alright, so this crazy spoiler season continues on, and actually, I missed an entirely different set that had some spoilers in it as well, so we'll jump into that. Yesterday, we talked about Foundations, as well as Jumpstart Foundations, or 2025, or whatever that is. Today, more Foundations, including what I think is going to be a huge card in Commander, Divine Resilience. I mean, huge in that it is an uncommon, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, it's going to crack the top, 100 cards of all time. I don't think it's quite there. It's a big splashy card in that, yeah, it can really help out a lot of decks out there. Instant speed for a single white mana Divine Resilience. Thank you, MTG Goldfish, to the translated version of this. Kicker for 3 mana in white. Target creature control gains indestructible until end of turn. If this spell was kicked, any number of target creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn instead. I do find that it's interesting that it's any number versus just like all your creatures. Like, is there ever a scenario where it'd be like, you know what, Bob over there, I don't like you. Okay, all right. Dark Confident, I guess, is what I'm talking about, because I did say Bob, which is a magic card. Anyways, yeah, I don't like you. No indestructible for you. That board wipe can take you out. This is a flexible, hey, either one creature protection, which can be huge for a certain amount of decks out there, or just in certain scenarios where you're just like, yeah, I don't have the mana to save up for 4 mana to protect my entire team, but yeah, I can save that one creature. I can save my commander when I want to. Or, yeah, if you need to hold back and say, yeah, board wipe might be coming in, I can save my entire team for 4 mana as well. Now, is this going to explode commander? No, but it is a very solid card that I think can see a lot of play out there when it comes to saving your entire team. Typically, I will say, except for certain push cards like, Heroic Intervention, kind of level, hey, protect your entire team and all those jazz, all that jazz, I guess is the term. For all that, for 2 mana, typically we have 3 mana, protect your entire team, indestructible. This is either 1, so it is cheaper than Heroic Intervention for, if you want to protect one thing, that one does div hexproof too, okay? Anyways, just as an example. That being said, it is flexible. I do think it's a very solid card, can definitely see a good amount of play out there. Next up, Leyline Axe. I did not expect to see this, and when I saw the name, I was like, huh, that's interesting they call this Leyline. Oh my gosh, it does the Leyline thing. My goodness. Artifact equipment for 4 mana. If this card is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. Let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong on this, okay? Have we ever seen any other ley lines outside of the enchantments which have that exact same text, essentially? Like, there are, Gemstone Caverns, is that the land, basically? There are, outside of those ley lines, we have seen that before, but I don't think we've ever seen a ley line outside of the enchantments. And now that we're getting this as an equipment that's pretty spicy, I guess I should say what the equipment says. Equip 3, equip creature gets ++1, and has double strike and trample. My goodness. So this is like Fire Shrieker to the max, kind of, in a way. If you obviously don't get an opening hand, which typically you're not going to, of course, in a format like Commander, where it's like, yeah, you've got 100 cards. 99 in the deck. You get 7 of them. It's a very low percentage chance that you get this in opening hand. When you do, that's amazing, though. Saves you that 4 mana. Just starts off the battlefield like, what you gonna do, opponents? Got this thing right here. Yeah, ++1, double strike, and trample. Trample with a double strike is huge. +1 is basically like, an extra 2 power as well because of that double strike. So, yeah, this is a huge card for Voltron decks, huge card for equipment decks. Equip 3 is, a bit on the not expensive side, I would say, when it comes to an equip cost, but it's like in the middle of the road, essentially. But still, certain commanders out there can get around that or get free equips. Very, very cool card. Never thought I'd see it. And yeah, we are getting one step closer to the all Leyline deck. We've got, every single card's a Leyline. You can just drop everything from your opening hand. Like, there you go. And then the opponent's like, what does this deck do? Nothing. I just dropped my opening hand. It was very impressive. You're welcome. Okay, moving on. We've got Cat Collector. A 3/2 human citizen for 3 mana in white. When this creature enters, create a food token. Whenever you gain life for the first time during each of your turns, create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Again, this is worded in a pretty specific way. For the first time during each of your turns. So therefore, not on your opponent's turns. Obviously, this would be a lot better if it was on your opponent's turns as well. Still not bad. Obviously, with each row on the table, you're only getting 1 cat if you gain life on your turn. That being said, yeah, if you've got a life gain strategy where you have consistent ways to gain life with a lot of different sources of life gain throughout the game, and it's always going to happen on your turn, then cool. Every single turn, you get a 1/1. That is a cat. Cool. Cat decks that have lifelink aspects to them might want to consider it as well. And of course, yeah, it does give you a food right away too. So food decks, consider that too. Next up, Cephalid Ink Mage, a 2/2 Octopus Wizard for 3 mana in blue. Enters Surveil 3. Solid. So again, Scry we have seen like on ETBs be, decently high, like, Scry 2, Scry 3. I don't know if we've seen a Surveil 3 on ETB. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on that, but that is quite nice because that's like potentially either mill 3 or like get the right thing on top of the library, which is quite nice. On top of that, Threshold, this creature can't be blocked as long as there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard. Yeah, I mean, like, that's nice. When it comes to, like, Commander, like, does that have all that big of an impact? Like, a 2/2 unblockable? Not really. But, like, ETB Surveil 3, yeah, that's a great amount of card selection and mill, potentially. So I could definitely say a Blink deck, potentially, utilizing this as a great way to dig down into the deck, especially. And, of course, a Blink deck, a Reanimator deck, a deck that, works with getting creatures in and out of play and getting things in the graveyard. Definitely something to consider. And, of course, decks that really care about Surveil specifically, obviously. Next up. Klingquint Sky Mage? No idea how to say that. A 1/1 bird wizard flying for 4 mana in blue. Whenever you draw a card, put a counter on this creature. I mean, I think we've seen somewhat of this design before. Like, obviously, you can turn this into a huge, heavy hitter. It's just like, yeah, like how much you really care about that in Commander. Be like, okay, cool. I got a 4 mana 1/1 that could turn into something massive with a good amount of draw. Like, I think if you have a bird or wizard deck, potentially, you might consider this if you've got a good amount of draw. Otherwise, you're probably not considering this one unless you've got, like, a very specific, like, yeah, I've got a deck where I can draw 40 cards at once. Cool, why not? All right. Next up, I mean, maybe Counters deck can consider it too. Moving on. Destiny Arbiter. A 5/5 Sphinx for 6 mana in blue. This spell can't be countered. Flying. When this creature enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library and separate them in a face-down pile and a face-up pile. An opponent chooses one of those piles. With that pile in your hand, the other in your graveyard. Wizard, stop giving Eddie more and more Sphinxes for Unesh. Yeah, this is pretty good. I mean, for what it is 6 mana for a 5/5 flyer, which these days it's like, okay, what else do you do? But yeah, being able to, again, have like I mean, this isn't fact or fiction. I'm sure there's a term for this one, but around the same kind of a thing where it's like, yeah, okay, opponent, you get to choose between these piles. You know what one of them is, you don't know what the other one is, and all of a sudden, yeah, I'm getting cards in my graveyard, I'm getting the other one in my hand. You're trying to, like, play with your opponent and, like, make them make the mistake of, like, oh. I mean, what happens literally if you, like, do, like, a 4-in-1, for them, like, here's the 4 face-up cards, this one face down. They've got to make the decision of like, okay, is that one card just absolutely crazy, or is it just an island and they're messing with me and they're going to get 4 cards? So yeah, it's a pretty cool card. ETB decks can definitely consider this one. A Blink deck, I should say more so. I mean, yeah, ETB deck, Blink deck, same thing. But yeah, that Sphinx Tribal, flying decks, consider it. Next up, we've got Battle Song Berserker, a 3/4 human berserker for 4 mana in red. Whenever you attack, target creature you control gets plus 0 and gains menace until end of turn. More of a limited card. Yeah, really doesn't see, Commander play, I wouldn't think. Maybe a tech deck. No, not really. Next up, Erudite Wizard, a 2/3 human wizard for 3 mana. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a counter on this creature. More of a limited card again. We have seen like the, hey, second card each turn, and we've seen like something crazy like the Homunculus. Yeah, if you haven't seen Homunculus Horde, make sure you check that one out. My goodness, this is not that. Sure, with each trip on the table, you could get like 4 counters on this, but like, okay, what else are you doing for me? Nothing. Cool. All right. No flying, no trample, no nothing, and it's, yeah, very limited card. Okay, moving on. Fiery Annihilation, instant for 3 mana in red, 5 damage target creature, exiles up to 1 target equipment attached to that creature. That creature would die this turn, exile it instead. This is more of a limited card as well. In Commander, yeah, having like a Burninate spell typically is not good enough to make the cut, except for specific decks. And this one's like Burninate, but specifically like, oh, okay, I'm also happy to play against equipment. Great, I get rid of that. It could be a blowout in a certain scenario, but it also just be like a do-nothing card that doesn't really help you out. So yeah, burn spells typically don't really see play in Commander, so unless it's a very specific burn deck, not going to see play. Next up, Grappling Kraken, one that will see play, and it's disgusting. 5/6 Kraken for 6 mana in blue. Landfall, whenever a land you control enters, tap target creature and opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. This reminds me of, oh gosh, what's the thing called? Scrap Heap Scrounger? No, is that the name? What's the one of the, it's the blue with affinity for tokens, and I think it might be that. Anyways, that one's essentially whenever tokens come into play, you tap things down and they don't untap. This one is, lands coming into play, which is easier. Now, this one doesn't have a cost reducer to get it out quicker or, easier. That being said, if you're going to play this, you're probably in Simic, I would assume, if you're using and abusing landfall. So you get this into play super easy, and then you're like, oh yeah, 4 lands in a turn, great. Tap down your creatures, stun counters on them. Of course, you could just keep tapping down the same creature even though it's tapped down to get more stun counters on it, or obviously proliferate further. Your opponent's creatures that you don't want to untap are never going to untap when you have this in play, essentially, with a landfall deck that is built correctly, getting 6+ lands in play per turn. I mean, not per turn, per each of your turns, but it's not just always 6, but a lot. You can really tap down a ton of things. This is a great way to control the board. And also, I guess, Sea Monster Tribal decks could just consider this as well. Even if you're just playing 1 land on your turn, or you play an Evolving Wilds and you crack it, that's 2. Great, you're still tapping down your opponent's best creatures and saying, you know what? Just stay tapped down for a little bit. Again, those stun counters are very effective. Next up, High Fate Trickster, a 4/2 fairy wizard for 4 mana in blue. Flash, flying, you may cast spells though they had flash. We've got yet another Vidalcan Orrery. Oh my goodness. So out of nowhere, you just flash this in. You're like, by the way, my spells have flash. And then you play a bunch of spells on that turn and do some crazy things. So obviously, unlike Vidalcan Orrery, you can't just flash that in. That you have to play and you sit around. That being said, Vidalcan Orrery is better in my opinion because it's an artifact. Creatures are easily removable compared to basically anything else. Because, board wipes, most board wipes like Wrath of God deal with creatures. That being said, artifacts aren't immune to getting removed, obviously. But still, this is a very effective card. This is also, a 4/2 flyer with flash for 4 mana. Back in the day, it'd be like, what's the downside? And you're like, there's no downside. And someone 20 years ago was like, what? There's only upside. Also, fairy and wizard, both relevant creature types, wizards especially. But that's a card that's going to see a good amount of play. Players love playing on other players' turns, of course. Yeah, it's another Vidalcan Orrery. Gross! Moving on. Billowing Shriek Mass. Gross art. Cool. 2/3. Spirit with flying. They cost 4 mana in black. When this creature enters, mill 3 cards. Threshold. This creature gets +2/+1 as long as there are 7 more cards in your graveyard. Again, that's a decent amount of mill on ETB. There's other ones that do this especially too, but this could see play in any kind of a deck that's good at using and abusing ETBs that really cares about the graveyard. That being said, do you really care about having a 4/4 flyer for 4 these days in Commander? Not really all that much. You really don't. So it's not bad, but it's if you want to use and abuse the ETB, great. But if not, that's okay too. Next up, Lunar Insight, sorcery for 3 mana in blue. Draw a card for each different mana value among non-land permanents you control. We actually got the text of this one from Morrow's Teasers a while back, and it's a solid card. I think I tried to speculate as to what the mana value of it was, and I can't remember if I said it's gonna be a sorcery or an instant. If this was instant speed, it would see a lot more play, I would think. Sorcery draw just is a bit more limited. That being said, if you do have a deck that's got a lot of different mana value cards in play, or just throughout the deck, if that's maybe something you're focused on for some reason, there are certain commanders that do that, or you just have a wide spread just naturally within the deck, just look at your deck list online and okay, where's my curve, all right? How spread out am I? If you've got a bunch of different ones, great, cool. And it does say non-lands, so lands don't count for you, but tokens count for you at 0. There you go. But being able to draw 3+ cards with this is probably pretty typical. Sorcery speed just is a limit. Again, when you're in blue, you got so many great options at instant speed that you're probably going to lean on those. For the right deck, though, you can draw a ton of cards with this. Again, sorcery speed, you might be okay with that. It's a very interesting design. If it was instant speed, it'd probably cost at least 4 mana, maybe 5. So there you go. Moving on. We got Mischievous Mystic, a 2/1 human wizard with flying for 2 mana. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. This one should see play because, it is not limited to, again, specifically earlier when we heard the cat lady or the cat person or whatever it was, the cat collector. Being able to only gain life on your turn to actually make a cat. This one is not limited to just your turn to make a fairy. Basically, with each ripper on the table, you could potentially, if you're drawing 2 cards each turn, make 4 fairies. Now, how realistic is that? I mean, it depends on the deck, right? It doesn't like say that you need like straight up card advantage. It could just be like, oh, okay, I cast a Brainstorm on an opponent's turn. Technically, I only went up 1 card, but I drew 3. So there you go. Or if I've got like Merfolk Looter type effects, cool, I can tap, draw, I loot. I don't really go up a card, but I still activate this. We're getting a lot more of these cards are like, hey, second card each turn, you get this effect. Yeah, I mean, those kinds of decks that are utilizing those cards already can definitely consider this one. Obviously, a fairy deck is going to love this as well. Fairies are in blue as well and have a lot of card draw. So yeah, you can make a lot of them with this. Human decks could consider it. Wizard decks consider it as well. It is low to the ground. It's a 2/1 flyer for 2 mana. And also like the flying men type strategies might want to consider this too, actually, because it is one that, again, is low to the ground. It's not as low to the ground as like flying men typically, which are 1 mana. Typically those kinds of decks are like, okay, everything that's evasive at 1 mana, take it, chuck it into the deck. This one though, it's like, okay, you're at 2. So it isn't as efficient. It's still not bad though. Again, 2 for a 2/1 flyer. But on top of that, as long as you got some card draw built in there, and you definitely do if you got like an Edric deck, because that's just what that deck does. You're just drawing cards with that. You can make more evasive creatures. So if you've got ways to make more evasive creatures with this, that's great. I could see potentially like Yuriko decks considering it as well, potentially. I mean, there's a lot of tough cuts for those decks, obviously, but like, again, low to the ground, evasive creature that can make you more evasive creatures. It's a good amount of decks to consider this one, so yeah, definitely consider it. Token decks too. Moving on, Scrawling Crawler, cool name. 3/2 for Phyrexian construct for 3 mana. Just walking around and just doing the job of apparently just writing things on things. I don't even know, like what is that, like a tome of some sort? So yeah, this is my job. Just there's a lot of evil Phyrexians out there that are doing like torture and stuff like that, and then you've got this one that's just like, no, I make signs. Yeah, someone's got to do it. It's my job. Okay, beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player loses 1 life. Quite evil. So, I mean, quite nice. They're like, hey, everyone, we all get cards. Yay. All right, you lose life. Oh, okay. So, yeah, basically, I mean, Underworld Dreams-esque, which Underworld Dreams, yes, I know. Okay, that's damage. This is life lost. They're different. Okay. Pretty similar, though, right? Anyways. This is like Howling Mine meets Underworld Dreams, kind of, but as a creature. So obviously, Phyrexian decks can consider this one, be like, yeah, sure, why not? Chuck it in there. Punish your opponents even further for drawing cards. Why not? Any kind of a deck that like wheels and is punishing opponents for that, yeah, that's gonna see play in those decks as well, because this is literally doing both for you. It's like, hey, force draw and also force pain. So yeah, I mean, specific kinds of decks want this, but also, yeah, if you're just looking, I mean, I guess group hug is what you could consider it, where you're like, hey everyone, we get to draw cards, yay. Oh wait, why am I hurting from drawing cards? So, I mean, I guess it's more like political control decks, maybe, versus actually like straight up group hug, which doesn't really want to actually win the game. Anyways, moving on. Seeker's Folly, a sorcerer for 3 mana in black. Choose 1. Target opponent discards 2 cards. Creature opponents control it -1/-1 until end of turn. I mean, outside of specific decks that really care about either discard, there's better ways to make people discard, obviously, or ones that really care about giving creatures specifically -1/-1 until end of turn, like Maha. Maha will be considering this. Maha considers anything that's just like, hey, do your opponent's creatures get -1/-1? Cool, consider it, because I take them all out with that. And then it's flexible enough that, like, if you don't need to do that, if your opponent's had only creatures on the board, you can be like, how do I punish you further? How many cards you got in your hand? 2. Yeah, I've got 2 cards in my hand. Now you have none. No! So yeah, a specific card. Next up, Tragic Banshee. Great name for this card. 5/3 Spirit for 5 mana in black. Morbid. When this creature enters, target creature opponent controls gets -1/-1 till end of turn. If a creature died this turn, the creature gets -13 instead. Of course, a reference to Tragic Slip, which is quite interesting. How much play is this going to see? I mean, it is like, no, yeah, probably not much at all. Like 5/3 for 5 mana. Okay, that's fine. ETB that you could use and abuse in the right strategy potentially, but you also have to have, guaranteed creatures dying as well to make sure that you're really getting the most out of that as well. Like Ravenous Chupacabra already is just going to be guaranteed to take a creature out. Yeah, sure, the scenarios where it's like, this gets around regenerate, this gets around indestructibility. Sure, but you also have to ensure that a creature died previously to make sure that you can actually take a creature out. So, like, will this see play in, like, a Blink deck? Maybe for the right one, I guess. Blank reanimation style, like, you know, like feign death type effect decks. Maybe I'm underselling it, but yeah, it's a cool design. Next up, okay, so I did miss some spoilers from Aether Drift because there was a lot going on. If you haven't seen it, yeah, check out my episode from Saturday. My goodness. But yeah, there are some Aether Drift spoilers as well. 7/6 artifact vehicle for 5 mana. This is an early preview. I think this comes out in February next year or something like that. Early year next year. Here we go. 7/6 vehicle for 5 mana in green. Vigilance, trample. Exile an artifact or creature card from your graveyard. This vehicle becomes an artifact creature for the turn. Crew 3. That's an interesting new way to kind of like crew a vehicle in a way where it's like, okay, yeah, you can get rid of something out of your graveyard. Cool. So you like get around that crew cost, and a 7/6 for 5 mana. Vigilance, trample. That's not too bad. I mean, like, when it comes to what kinds of decks might want this, again, vehicle decks, obviously, or like, you know, like, I mean, Galta, like power matters type synergies like that as well. Could consider it too. Yeah. Or, you know, commanders that really want to be able to be tapped, like that one from Duskborn that's escaping my mind with its name. It's a really cute, like, beast thing that is in green, costs 4, and wants to tap. That one, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, moving on. Bright Glass Gearhulk. Oh my goodness, the Gearhulks are coming back. 4/4 construct. First strike, trample for 4 mana if I could talk in Selesnya. When this creature enters, you may search the library for up to 2 artifact, creature, and/or enchantment cards of mana value, 1 or less, reveal them, put in your hand, then shuffle. Did not expect that out of the Gearhulks. The other Gearhulks, like previously, were like, destroy things, or get bigger, and this one's like, hey, tutor! And we're like, what? Tutor! Okay, Bright Glass. It's a bit strange, but cool. Yeah, this is a card where, I mean, again, like, ETB, use and abuse, tutor out, again, 2 artifacts, creatures, and or enchantments. Again, mana value 1 or less, sure, very specific, but there are certain, you know, combos, certain cards that are just very, very good at 1 mana. I mean, this can go get you Skull Clamp. Like, this can go get you Skull Clamp. Oh, goodness. So, yes. This is a card that can be quite good for later scenario. I mean, Esper Sentinel as well. Lots of great things at 1 or, you know, 1 or less mana, essentially. But yes, being able to go Wayfarer's Bauble, there you go. Yeah, I mean, it's quite solid. ETB deck could use and abuse this if it's got the right cards in the deck, of course. Or again, if you just literally need a tutor for specific things that cost 1 or less, consider it. Did not expect to see this, you know, designed this way. Very interesting. Next up, Daretti, Rocketeer, Engineer. Cool name. Star 5, Goblin Artificer for 5 mana in red. Power equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. Whenever Daretti enters or attacks you, target artifact card in your graveyard. You may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, turn the chosen card to the battlefield. Okay, so yeah, that is quite powerful. That might have some kind of a combo around it, I would assume, with that ETB, potentially. Regardless, I mean, we got plenty of ways to get some giant artifacts out quite quickly and quite easily. I'm talking about, was it Combustible Gearhulk? What's the one? Not Combustible. What's the one that's like 11, you know, it's like 11 cost, it's a 10/10. Whatever that one is, that's absolutely huge, that gets reduced based off of your non-creature artifacts. Yeah, that one. I don't know why it's skipping my mind. It's not a Gearhulk, technically. Metal Work Colossus. There we go. We got there. Cool. All right. Anyways, it's easy to get certain ones out. Again, you've got Affinity. You've got other ways to cheat certain artifacts out to play. Get a giant one out there, and this thing can hit for a ton. You also, of course, have double strike type effects as well. You can take players out with 1 shot with this. But also, of course, I mean, if you got ways to use and abuse that ETB, cool. Cheat giant artifacts out of your graveyard into play. That is huge. And, of course, you can cheat the giant ones out, which make this power even bigger. Absolutely lovely. Use and abuse. ETBs quite spicy for this one. And then we've got Koma World Eater. Okay, here we go. So yeah, Koma, famously one of the saltiest commanders right now. If you haven't seen my episode on yeah, salty commanders, make sure you check that out. Oh my goodness, yeah, this is definitely up there. 8/12, I mean, this isn't, the old Koma is, but this one, maybe, probably not. Anyways, 8/12 Serpent for 7 mana in Simic. This spell can't be countered, so Koma, still uncounterable, even though it's a new version. Trample, Ward 4. Yeah, so the other one had, like, hexproof-ish. I mean, most of the time it would have hexproof, but this one's Ward 4 just straight up, which is kind of hexproof in a way. Like, sure, all right, you've got your Swords of Plowshares. Congratulations, you're spending 5 mana to take out my commander with a Swords of Plowshares. And then, of course, I'm in blue, so I could just counter that as well. So that's a huge commitment for someone to actually target this with anything. That being said, on top of that, when this deals combat damage to a player, create 4/3/3 blue serpent creature tokens, name Koma's Coil. Okay, so yeah, Koma is definitely back. There is going to be no running out of, those Koma's coils because you're going to be still getting a ton of them. Again, older Koma. With each trooper on the table, you automatically got 4. This one's like, no, on my turn, I get the 4. Maybe even more than that as well. On top of that, again, this is literally just how Magic is these days. Back in the day, you spend 7 mana on a creature, maybe it's a 6/6, okay? Maybe. Now, it's like, all right, 7 mana on a creature, 8/12, can't be countered, trample. You can't target it, really. And on top of that, when this hits, you get 12 extra power across 4 bodies. My goodness. Obviously, this is quite the commander. Again, we did see like the 8/12 Ward 4, from Morrow's teasers as well. I believe that was one of them. This thing is huge. This thing is a 3-shot KO, can very easily become a 2 or 1-shot KO for the right strategy around it, and you are incentivized to make it hit incredibly hard in a certain way. And I am going to go through a quick take on this one and talk about what cards work really well with this one. If you are interested in these cards, make sure you pick them up sooner rather than later, because this one's probably going to be a pretty popular commander. Check that out in the description below. Let's jump into it. Okay, and we're just going to go with how Moxfield organized these cards. So let's go with artifacts first, apparently. Basilisk Collar. Yeah, a great card to consider for this commander. Equipment for a single mana, 2 to equip, Death Touch and Lifelink. Both incredibly relevant keywords, especially when it comes to with Trample for Death Touch. Death Touch plus Trample equals, it doesn't matter essentially how big your creature's toughness is that's blocking my commander. I'm going to assign 1 point of damage to it. It's gone, and the rest of the damage is going to trample through. So literally your opponent would have to block with 8 creatures. I don't know why I said 7. 8 creatures to stop you from getting your trigger for hitting them. That's not going to happen. So, yeah, basically, you're going to get damage through. Obviously, commander damage, which to get to 21 with this does not take long at all. You take out your opponents very quickly. You get that damage through. Get 4 of those 3/3s again. 12 power across 4 bodies. And on top of that, you're gaining life every single time you do that. So, yeah, swing out to your heart's content. Next up, Blackladder Forge. Of course, we got plenty of ways to pump our commander. You're in Simic. You're going to get a lot of lanes in play. That's just what Simic players do. And obviously, your commander costs 7, so you want to ramp quickly, effectively, efficiently, and the most protected form of ramp is lands. Like it or leave it. In commander, that's just how it is. Legendary Artifact, equip for 2 mana. Equip for 3 because it's legendary. I always forget about the equip 7, but always equipping this to legendary creatures. +1 for each land you control. So yeah, pump your commander a ton. And of course, again, it just takes 3 power to get your commander into a 2-shot KO. And of course, obviously, if your opponent's creatures block, good for them, but getting extra damage through because that trample is nice. And of course, yeah, at a certain point, you could just get to a 1-shot KO, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Next up, very simple, very effective Hero's Blade, 2 mana. Yeah, it's equipped 4, but you kind of don't have to worry about that for the most part. +3, +2, whenever you lead your creature on the battlefield under your control, you may attach Hero's Blade to it. This literally just on its own. You play this early, cool, congratulations. Your commander for the rest of the game now is a 2-shot KO. You get this on your commander is hitting for 11. Also has 14 toughness, which means it's even tougher to take out. But again, hitting for 11 means, hey, that's over half of the commander damage at 21. So if you hit twice, they are gone. Next up, speaking of hitting twice, Fire Shrieker. Yeah, any kind of a double strike, including the other one we talked about earlier, the Leyline Axe, is going to be amazing with this commander. Equipment for 3, cost 2 to equip. Very simple, double strike. That is massive for this commander for 2 reasons. Number 1, sure, okay, instead of hitting for 8, now we're hitting for 16. Or again, if we're hitting for 11, now we're hitting for 22. Again, this turns our commander automatically into a 2-shot KO, very easily into a 1-shot KO on anyone, which is massive. Again, it doesn't matter if they're at 1 billion life, all of a sudden, like, I hit you with my commander for 22, and they're like, okay, well, my life total went down ever so slightly, but I'm gone because commander damage. On top of that, again, because your commander would have double strike, it's hitting once, hitting twice. Yeah, now instead of getting only 12 power across 4 bodies, you are getting 24 power across 8 bodies just for hitting with your commander. So yeah, this can get out of control quite quickly. Give your commander double strike is amazing with this commander. Next up, speaking of double things up, Stronic Resonator. Pay 2, tap, copy target, triggered ability control, choose targets to the copy. All of a sudden, you're just like, okay, I hit with my commander. Oh, that triggered. All right, I'm going to double that up for 2 mana. Yeah, I'll pay 2 mana to make 4 creatures with 12 power in total. Thank you. Next up, speaking of power, take advantage of your commander's high mana value. Hedron Matrix costs 4, 4 to equip, plus X for X, it's converted mana cost, mana value essentially these days. yeah, your commander again costs 7. All of a sudden you're taking advantage of its high cost and saying, you know what? Now all of a sudden you're hitting for 15 with trample. Thank you. Next up, Master Biomancer. Now, this can help you out for a couple of different reasons. Number one, if you've got any +1 counter synergies, great, congratulations. This can help you out a lot with them. A 2/4 elf wizard for 4 mana in Simic. Each other creature you control enters the battle with a number of additional counters on it, equal to Master Biomancer's power, and is a mutant to other types. So congratulations, Koma. Now you're a serpent god mutant thing. Anyways, I don't actually, is Koma technically a serpent? I have to go back and look, but I think it just says serpent. Why isn't it a god? My goodness. Okay. Anyways. Helps it to play 2 counters on it, which is nice. Again, gets it to 10 power, gets it even closer to becoming a 2-shot KO. That being said, it also benefits all your other creatures coming into play, including the Koma's Coils, and all of a sudden, they are now 5/5s instead of 3/3s, which does make a difference. Now, you're getting 20 power across 4 bodies. Like, 3 power it's not nothing in Commander, right? It's solid. It's incredibly solid to get 4 3/3s, right? But each individual 3/3, that's a medium-sized creature. Now with each creature being a 5/5, my goodness, they're some of the biggest threats on the board. And of course, again, if you've got other ways to manipulate counters, get more of them, etc., 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 you can make them even bigger. Next up, though, Garrick's Pack Leader thinks 3 is just fine. Whenever the creature you control with power 3 or greater enters, you may draw a card. You hit with your commander, and all of a sudden, you are drawing 4 cards. Again, I'll say that again. You hit with your commander, and if it's got double strike, now you're drawing for 8 cards. Simic! Yeah, that's fun for you. Next up, consider, of course, some Serpent synergies, some Sea Monster synergies. Serpent of Yawning Depths, 6/6 Serpent for 6 mana. Krakens, Leviathans, Octopus, and Serpents you control can't be blocked except by Krakens, Leviathans, Octopus, and Serpents. They really should find a way to be like, sea monsters can't be blocked by non-sea monsters or something. Like, everyone knows what the sea monsters are, right? Okay. I guess whales aren't sea monsters, though. Or like fish, even though they're sharks. I don't know. Okay, so we've got, hey, basically your team's unblockable, and unless you're playing in Sea Monster Tribal on the other side of the table, their team is not. So of course you could go like Sea Monster Tribal with this one. This makes not only your commander unblockable, but also all the things it creates too. Regardless, even if you just have this in the deck to make your commander unblockable and the Koma's Coils unblockable too, it's gonna be worth it. Next up, spawning Kraken. 6/6 Kraken for 6 mana in blue. Whenever a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent, Sea Monster, you control deals combination to player, create a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token. This can get out of control in absolutely no time. Again, literally, your commander goes through and it hits. Congratulations, you get 4 3/3s. And you also get a 9/9. So that now is 21 power across 5 bodies. Next turn, let's say all those creatures connect again. Oh my gosh, make even more every single time. My goodness, you go out of control. Yes. Of course, Koma works with Koma. My goodness. Salty, commander on top of salty commander potentially. I'm not saying this one's going to be salty, but yeah, this one is very salty. Koma Serpent. A 6/6 Serpent for, again, 7 mana. Can't be countered. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue Serpent creature token named Koma's Coil. Koma's Coil's everywhere with both these in play. Sacrifice on the Serpent, choose 1. Tap target permanent activated abilities can be activated this turn. It gains indestructible up turn. I was wrong. Sorry. It does not have hexproof. It's indestructible. My bad for misspeaking on that. That being said, it's still incredibly hard to deal with either way. This one, again, basically is just like, hey, make more Koma's Coils. The other one's like, do you want more Koma's Coils? Cool, I'd like those Koma's Coils. We can tap down absolutely everything in the world. Cool. Next up, a sneaky play with this new one, Assault Formation. Consider this card. It is amazing with this new commander. Unless you're like, the rest of the deck is all power creatures that have low toughness. That's probably not the case. Enchantment for 2 mana in green. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. That is huge because, again, your commander is an 8/12. Now, all of a sudden, it's basically a 12/12. This is +4 power for an enchantment that is staying in play. It's not an equipment that you have to throw on. It's literally just get this down early, and all of a sudden, your commander is a 12/12. Congratulations. On top of that, you can make creatures with Defender attack if they don't have Defender. Cool. Or you can pump creatures +0/+1 for 3 mana. It's not very efficient. I mean, it is efficient if you have a lot of creatures in play, like, say, your entire team, when you keep getting more and more Koma's Coils. Sure, then it is efficient, just 3 mana to pump like 10+ creatures. That being said, yeah, what really matters, again, this is basically like +4/+0 to your commander. Congratulations, that's already worth it for an enchantment that's going to stay in play. Next up, Elemental Bond, again, Garrick's Pack Leader, basically. Champ for 3 mana, creature power 3 greater, is buff under control, draw a card. Draw 4 cards when your commander connects, or again, 8 with double strike, gross. Levitation, getting your commander through, again, you've got Trample, maybe you have other ways to give Death Touch, that's great. Even something as simple as this, though, can be amazing. Enchantment for 4 mana, creature control flying. Your opponents might be like, you know what? We're good. All right, there's an 8/12 over there, but we've got this, I've got my own massive army. And you're like, do you have any flyers? They're like, no, why would I have flyers? Koma doesn't fly. And you're like, okay, Levitation. Oh my goodness. And then, yeah, all of a sudden you make a massive army of serpents that also fly, which is terrifying. Speaking of massive, Parallel Lives. Okay. This is just going to be the catch-all card for any of the cards out there that say double the tokens, okay? Any of the double token cards, Doubling Season, etc., 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 all those, this is the catch-all card that I'm going to say right now. Enchantment for 4 mana, basically double up your tokens. So all of a sudden, again, you hit with your commander, congratulations, you make 8. If you have double strike, you're making 16 tokens for 1 combat. That is, quick math, 32, 48. Is that 48 power across those bodies? My goodness, yeah, you can win very quickly with something like this. Unnatural Growth, enchantment for 5 mana in green. Don't worry about all those pips. You're in Simic. You're going to be ramping. You're going to be able to fix that. You're fine. Beginning of each combat, double the power tokens of each creature you control until turn. This is a gross card. This is disgusting. It's every combat, not just your own. Your commander is going to be hitting for 16. Ooh, yeah, one-shot KO very easily from there. And then on top of that, by the way, yeah, your little Koma's Coils, which are not all that little, right? Again, they're 3/3s. Now they're 6/6s. Some of the biggest creatures on the board. Good luck, opponents. Next up, Return of the Wild Speaker. Great for 2 different reasons. Instant for 5 mana. 4, choose 1. Draw cards equal the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. Already just being like, oh yeah, 5 mana, instant speed, draw 8, eat your hearts out opponents, because green can do anything. On top of that, non-human creature control get +3 with 3 until end turn. Yeah, out of nowhere, just pump my team, basically overrun type effect. It doesn't give trample, but again, if your opponents don't block, it's basically trample. I mean, it's not trample, it's like they just didn't block. So, you swung through, and you're like, yeah, they didn't block these creatures. Cool, my Koma's Coils, whatever, getting through. Now they're hitting for 6 instead of 3. My commander's hitting for 11 instead of 8. Again, turns into a 2-shot KO. Quite spicy, but yeah, at the very least, just being like, y'all draw 8 for 5 mana instant speed. Crazy. Moving on, speaking of getting through, Whelming Wave. Yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy good board wipe for you. Source for 4 mana in blue. Return all creatures to owner's hands except for Krakens, Leviathans, Octopus, Serpents. Again, basically sea monsters. So like all the other things are like, oh, we gotta leave. The sea monsters are here. Your sea monsters stay. Your commander, all the tokens you're making, your opponent's creatures, most likely all of them are going to be gone unless you're playing against that one other player that's got a sea monster deck and they're like, ha, I've got that card in my deck as well. And you're like, yeah, I figured. Okay, cool. Next up, Overwhelming Stampede. A gross way to finish off all your opponents is to take advantage of your commander's immense power. Sorcerer for 5 mana in green. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample, get +X/+X until end of turn. Sorry, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Basically, you say, hey, you know what, Koma, even if I haven't pumped you, all right, you're just an 8 power creature. Just. All of a sudden, my army of Koma's Coils are getting massive. I mean, my commander gets massive too, right? Turns into a 16 power creature. Absurd. But also, my Koma's Coils now are 11/11s. And again, this is like the base level. This is assuming you don't have any pump effects on your commander, which you probably do. So obviously, this can get even more ridiculous, even more absurd. Next up, Rush of Knowledge, another great sorcery to consider. Sorcery for 5 mana. Draw cards equal the highest converted mana cost among permanents you control. That would be probably your commander at 7. So again, take advantage of that mana value. Next up, Traverse the Outlands. Take advantage of the power again. Sorcery for 5 mana. Search life for X basic lands or X greatest power among creature you control. Put those cards on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. I mean, if you play this, you literally don't need to ramp again for the rest of the game, right? Basically, again, all of a sudden your commander's like, oh yeah, I got 8 power, cool. Go get 8 lands. Put those into play. Good luck, opponents. I'm at, again, if you were just at 7 lands before, all of a sudden you're at 15 lands. How many games do you end with 15 lands? I mean, okay, Simic players out there are like, every game, that's what I do. Ha ha ha. Yes, maybe. Okay. Next up, we're going to be done talking about Koma because it's a gross commander. It's going to be a very spicy commander. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as salty as original Koma, because original Koma is like, yeah, you're getting all this free value each turn, and you can tap down my things. And yeah, it's really hard to deal with your commander. Yeah, this one's also hard to deal with. It hits hard, it makes a lot, so maybe it'll get up there in the salt score, but yeah, there's some really exciting things that you can do with it as well. I think it's gonna be pretty popular. Again, if you're interested in these cards, make sure you check out that card link in the description below. Also, stay tuned for more exciting quick takes and spoilers. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it, and of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.